now be, I believe, the 9th black belt in jiu-jitsu that we've had. So of all the guests, even though I like to think this is like a variety podcast where we talk to a bunch of people about a bunch of things, there seems to be this commonality of martial arts, specifically with jiu-jitsu. And I find that there's a correlation between, I don't know if you'd call it success or maturity or, good role models or having some of the characteristics that you would want in young men and black belts in jiu-jitsu. Either you, Rogers, Adam Marburger, I just had Nick Sanders on today. There seems to be this like stoicism, this strength in all these black belts in jiu-jitsu. So in the weirdest way, without sounding like I'm glazing you, thank you so much for being here and thank you for being part of this.
Feel free to glaze.
He's like, please. I can only handle so much.
No more. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, some good people. You mentioned some great names, some great competitors. Good people.
Yeah. We talked briefly at the last Shamrock event. I forget, though, why were we both there? Who were you there to go see?
God, who was fighting that day?
It was someone from St. Charles, I believe, or no, from Quentin's gym. I'm sorry. I'm drawing a blank here.
Yeah. It was Drew.
Drew Gigax, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm
Drew's
sorry,
my guy.
Drew.
No, yeah.
Forgive me. We literally had him on the podcast. I've been hitting the head a lot.
Me and you both, the ex-murderer. That's what I like to call him. Drew's an amazing guy. So
yeah, fought Vince and fucking looked amazing.
Yeah, so I'd like to say that Quentin is my my striking counterpart. Like we do a lot of work together,
Where you're more the grappling.
Yeah, I'm the wrestling, the grappling. Thank you. He's a striking coach. Works well together. He's a great guy. So, been in the room a ton with Drew. He's helped me. Drew's sometimes the third guy in the corner with Quentin and I, depending on who's fighting. I love Drew. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
And so sometimes my son Hickson will come in and train Muay Thai there, and it's fun watching Drew do rounds with him. And he's gentle. Kid's learning.
Yeah, Drew. What surprised me about Drew was actually how cocky he is. Like off the record, man, that boy can spit. You know what I mean? Like he was like, "I'll fuck this guy up. I'll fuck that guy up," and I was like, "Drew, where is this in front? Where is this in front of the camera?"
I don't even see like having these conversations with Drew. It's more like to me, it's but I know him. It's more like this. He's a quiet confidence kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
And then it comes. He's like, I'm not telling tales out of school. This is just what it is, But maybe, you've been a fighter. You know how it is. He's just like, yeah.
Dude, I was the loud, brash one.
Yeah.
Well, it's, that actually brings up a good point. I talked about it with Nick, and it was something that I noticed last night at Stand Up Fight Series. It's funny how in some of the traditional martial arts, like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's a lot of like respect, honor, and all these other kind of characteristics that delineate from jiu-jitsu. And then the same thing in Muay Thai. In Muay Thai, before Lordzilla fought, there was like a 10-minute ceremony before they threw a first punch. And I thought to myself, there is a beauty to this. However, it has not transcended to MMA. MMA, I don't know if it's because of Conor. I don't know if it's because of the nature of the sport, combining all these martial arts.
Because you have to be a heathen to do it, I think.
Ooh, elaborate.
Well, so, I mean, I don't think it's fair to put it on Conor. I think it started way before Conor,
Agreed.
I mean, and you have both degrees of separation of personalities, the very stoic, straightforward kind of fighter. Then you have, just Conor out of their mind, right?
Brash confidence.
Sure, in your face. I mean, but that goes back to Ali was brash, but Ali was brash in a very educated fashion. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. He was also a trendsetter because no one did it like him before him.
It's where it all begins. And then you look at so it started with him. Then we talk about the bad guy.
I'd say Mayweather.
No, literally the bad guy. That was his nickname.
Chael Sonnen.
Chael, and then Chael, took it to another level in the modern era, right? Did anybody do it better than him until we got to Conor? You know what I mean? And Conor just took it to the next level, in the more modern day wing. But you had some guys in between, like Kobe. Come stop, Kobe. You weren't great at it. He tried. I get it. You're trying. I mean, it's how you create, an area for yourself, a space for yourself, so you can make money And by all accounts, I've heard he's actually a decent guy. And that's just not how he is. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But you're just trying to create a niche for yourself. And I get it. But I think when we go back to where it started, like look at MMA just started in Brazil. And they were just crazy. You know what I mean? But that was part of the culture.
Yeah, it was called Vale Tudo back
It was
then.
Vale
Not
Tudo.
even
There was
MMA.
literally no rules. So I think the one thing we all have in common, regardless how we express it externally, is we're all fighters for a reason.
I agree with that. I guess the one critique that I had, or not even critique, it was just like an observation I made of Drew was like, dude, I guess maybe it's also because I like that shit.
Yeah.
I like it. Like I never was the kind of person I like it all. I like your stoic, quiet. You could be a Habib, you could be a Connor. I enjoy everything under the rainbow as long as it's, accompanied with success. To bring it back with Drew, Drew's a cold striker. And then he talks in a certain way, like very stoic and humble and kind of reserved on the mic or in front of the camera. And then you'll talk to him outside and I'm like, my man, like you have two sides of that coin, neither good nor bad, simply an observation.
He's a professional. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
Not just in the ring or the cage, but also in life with, having a real job and having a family. And so I think that's sort of to use the word dichotomy again, I think that's part of it. You choose to be who you choose to be, I guess. But I know in my head, I'm having a party every time I want to fight. I'm probably like WWE wrestler where I'm on the ropes and do one of these and do one of these, but that's not what comes out. But in my head, I'm having the best celebration ever. And there's just DJ at the party and all these things are happening, but that's just not how I express myself. You know what I mean?
Just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second, I'd greatly appreciate it, and on with the show.
It's just not what happens, but it's going on up there, and I see it.
Can I ask you a question? And I'm not trying to get like too philosophical or anything, so keep it high level or micro or macro as you want. What do you think of when you think of fighting, martial arts, jiu-jitsu, boxing, all of it, or some of it? What do you think about it? Do you look at it as an art? Do you look at it as you use the word, we have to be heathens to be fighters? Do you look at it as like maybe a negative? Do you look at it as just a way to make money? Like, what do you look at it when you look at martial arts?
If we're talking about the fight game, then I think it's purposeful. It might be that's the way you earn a living because you have no other recourse. It might be because you need an outlet, and I think that's okay. If it's the thing that keeps you from hurting people on the street and out of jail, then you should absolutely do that thing. If it keeps you in good graces at home with your family, because you have that outlet, then I think it's a necessary evil, so to speak. I just think it's an outlet, and I think it's all those things, just depending on who the conduit is.
I agree, actually.
Or the vehicle, because it's a conduit. But I think it's been all those things to all of us at different times in our lives. To be quite honest.
For me, at moments in my life, it was like an outlet that saved me. At other times, it was a vehicle for a darker side of me.
Sure.
It has been a consistent good and bad throughout that journey, but I was still better for doing it, if
Absolutely.
that makes sense.
No, for sure. And I think, it's such a layered question because it's a layered thing. I think at different times, I'm probably better off fighting in a lot of ways because it keeps me out of trouble. I'm probably better off not fighting because of the person that I could be when I'm in that headspace. You know what I mean? Like I probably shouldn't be on top of somebody's random bar doing the things that you probably do as a fighter. You know what I mean? And it's good to get that energy out in very specific ways. I know that sounds cryptic.
No.
But I think you end up being in certain mind spaces when you're as a fighter. And I think it's good for us to have those outlets and probably leave them there. For me, it's good that I leave it there.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's a problem if I don't contain that thing.
I think I don't think that is a out of the norm for most fighters, if I could be honest with you.
No, I don't disagree. Yeah.
And I think it's probably kept a lot of us out of. I can only speak from my own anecdotal experience, but I mean, it prevented me fighting when I was in school and I was working from my late teens to early 20s. It kept me on this like path of discipline. I didn't have time to do stupid shit because I was either at school, I was working, or I was training. So when I wasn't at school and maybe some other people would party a little bit, I had an amateur fight coming up and I had to go to the gym, and maybe I was like strict on my diet because I was making weight or whatever. It was a vehicle for me to not make poor decisions. Because sometimes I do this thing now where, because I'm removed from the competition aspect, I'll be a martial artist till the day I die. I like coaching wrestling, I like grappling, I like sparring, like that'll never leave me. But the competitive side of me is done. Like I'm old now, or at least I think I'm old now, and I'm good to go, right? So I've spent some time pondering, like, okay, was this a waste of my time? Did I waste my time? And I'm like,
experiences are never a waste of time.
agreed.
Yeah.
That's what I come to, is like, well, I'm afforded the luxury of asking myself that question because I did it. Now I can look back on it. I don't know the kind of person I would be if I never had stepped on the mats, or you know what? What kind of person would I be if I never stepped on the mats?
Where would you be?
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I don't know. Like I played college football, so I think.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, and you know,
What position?
Nickelback linebacker.
Nice.
And I could have wrestled in college, and ran track as well. But I think, what if I were doing? I didn't start jiu-jitsu till I was 30, and I told myself,
not know that.
Yeah, I started later in life, I guess, but it just all happened really quick for me. And I told myself, as soon as I got a blue belt, I was going to take a fight. So I was helping, you know, Steve Berger, Mike Rogers, Brian Guidry, these higher level guys we had in the gym that started years before me. I was helping them get ready for fights. And in my head, I was like, well, when I take a fight, I'll be ready. But I didn't have like a drop dead date necessarily, just sort of a goal, and just sort of trained without expectation, which is usually the best advice I give people about like belts and jiu-jitsu, just train without expectation. And I try to be a man of my word. So 9 months, I got my blue belt from Rodrigo, and then I was fighting. So I felt, you know, pretty ready. But what would have happened if I were fighting at 20, 21? I don't know. I don't know if that's the headspace. If I'd have been in a great headspace, because even being a college football player, things got kind of crazy and kind of wild, and you know, it can be a different environment. So I'm not sure if going to the next level would have been a good thing for me, or if I would have, you know, kept it in check pretty well. So I mean, it's interesting. I'm you know, in some ways I'm glad I didn't have to find out. In other ways, I'm glad that for different reasons I didn't have to find out, because of the discipline that I had at that time to be the person I needed to be. I don't know that my diet would have been what it needed to be, or if I could have made the decisions not to go out to the bars and drink, you know, just, you know, you put things in the order they need to be in. Begin with the end in mind, you know, all the 7 habits of highly effective people, all that stuff that's important.
I have to say that I'm a little surprised that I did not know that you started jiu-jitsu at 30 years old. Mm-hmm. I thought for some reason, I don't know why, I thought for some reason it was much more of like a lifelong pursuit.
Sure, of course.
What was it that got you in at, like, why not 25? Why not 35? Like, what was it at that age that attracted you to it?
I think that's I think it's a fair assessment. Most people think I was probably born doing jiu-jitsu, but I started wrestling when I was 3. So
God bless. Jesus.
Yeah, so, you know, I always tell people when I say that this ear bends, you know, but this one doesn't even bend. That's how crusty that ear is. There's no bend to it. It's as hard as that table, you know. Lifelong grappler. I don't know, man. You know, I remember being in college and we watched a pay-per-view, watched the UFC, and I remember thinking I want to do that one day. But and it was Hoist, right? And I literally remember thinking more specifically, it wasn't necessarily the fighting aspect. It was the jiu-jitsu that I wanted to do. Because if I could take wrestling and then blend it with that jiu-jitsu stuff, you know, it'd be magical.
Yeah.
And I, you know, you couldn't have told me that the ninja wasn't going to win that fight, you know. I think Fred Eddish, but you know how that worked out. So, but that's what you don't know is what you don't know, right? Because grew up watching like Kung Fu Theater and the black ninja and then the white ninja. And of course the white ninja was always better than the black ninja, you know, in their clothing. So it was just these fun fantasy things. And because I knew I wanted to do that one day, take it, store it, I'll get there. One day I'm at a Gold's Gym working out, and just trying to figure out what the next move is as far as like athletically as an adult. And I left the Gold's Gym frustrated, right in the middle of a workout. And I see a sign that says Submission Jiu-Jitsu. And it's in South County, the old Concord Plaza. And
That's a throwback.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where, yeah, shout out, right?
Shout out Concord.
So that, so that's where the first gym that Rodrigo had that I started training at was. So I literally like drove past it, saw it, and I committed it to memory. And I'm like, because it was later at night, and I'm like, I'm gonna go back there. So I went back, and I remember walking in, and it was a bunch of guys in gis on mats. The windows were fogged up, so it was like a wrestling room. You know, I'm a born grappler, and I remember hearing the sound of tap, 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 or the occasional yelp, and I was like, I'm home. Like, that's it. So that was literally it. When I say that was it, I never left. I mean, I went home, but I never left, right? I'm joking. I think we literally went out. Rodrigo wasn't there. They invited me to go out that night. We went out that night.
After the practice.
After, we all went out our gis, right? No, we went out that night, and I swear to God, we choked people out.
What do you mean? At the bar?
Yeah.
No shit.
And allegedly we choked people out. And I remember somebody that will remain nameless was probably instructing me through the alleged choke.
He's cornering you in an impromptu bar fight. That's fucking awesome.
I mean, it was. When I say I was in, Like, that was it. And it's been NASCAR ever since, 1,000 miles an hour.
Do you feel like that was also perhaps something like a camaraderie that you once had in college football? Because they say that sports like that breed that team mentality, that collective mentality. So then obviously you separate yourself from that after you graduate, and you kind of have,
you're
I don't want to say
your back.
void, but then you're like, okay,
Yeah,
this is the new group, this is the new family.
Sure, and it was honestly very similar backgrounds where everybody were higher level wrestlers.
Came from other sports.
Yeah.
Athletes.
It was actually not even really that. Like the people I was with were higher level wrestlers. So more specifically, we've got this guy in the gym, Steve Mankey, Steve's an amazing guy, been around forever, has a ton of black belts, and he'll tell you the only belt that he has that matters is his jiu-jitsu belt, right? Very high judoka, but just whatever. And Steve says from day one I was in the inner sanctum. I don't know if I was in the inner sanctum. I know I got a lot. I was invited to go along. And those guys started, late 90s. I started in 2003. So I felt like I was really, really far behind, which that is a good amount of time behind. But after 9 months, I was only ever one belt behind those guys. But again, all similar age, similar background with wrestling. And so I didn't have to do a lot of work besides show up every day, which is, 90% of whatever we do, right?
Consistency is the hardest thing.
It is the hardest thing. But when you've got, iron sharpens iron, so when you have a room full of iron, you're either going to, get cut in half or you're going to sharpen. So I say I didn't have to do a whole lot of work other than show up because it's survival. So I just had to survive every day. And in that survival, it didn't work out too bad for me.
It's also a tough room. When you're talking about Mike Rogers and Steve Berger, this is when Steve's on his ascension, looking to be a fighter himself, later fighting in the UFC.
Yeah.
From all that I've heard about Mike Rogers was one of those guys with even Rodrigo said it when he was on the podcast that Mike Rogers probably had the most amount of potential from that group of guys.
For sure.
So if you're in there with them,
Absolutely.
They say, birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
And like you said, iron sharpens iron. This is the cloth in which you are cut from.
I've never been, and I promise you, they'll all say the same thing. There's no tournament I've ever competed in that was as tough as our in-school tournaments. Again, Brian Guidry, Mike Rogers, Brazilian Mike Rothmeyer, who, if you haven't had him on, you should have him on. Amazing black belt, just guys amazing at jiu-jitsu. And there's, I kind of think in terms of people being Swiss Army knives, so everybody serves a purpose for what you need in your game or in life. So I can look back at even getting ready for fights, that I knew if I was passing this person's guard, I was ready. Like, everything was tight, everything was precise. I knew if I was handling this person's pressure, I was ready for a fight, because everybody just serves a certain specific role for you. We had a guy Derek, who is a freaking beast, and Derek played linebacker at KU. Guy's a human anatomy chart. And Derek Fairchild. And Derek was Tyron Woodley's strength and conditioning coach forever. You know, so when you watch all the UFC countdowns, he was the guy with Tyron all the time. And Derek was just a physical specimen and beast, you know. So it was just a room full of tough guys. I say that, and when in competition, literally what I don't believe in pressure. Pressure doesn't exist to me.
What do you mean by that? Pressure does not exist with you.
It's just not a thing.
In sport, in life, in
sports,
general,
it's
what do
just
you
not
mean?
a thing to me. Like if I go to a competition, one probably because I did freestyle, Greco, and folk style growing up, 3 seasons a year. So it's hundreds of matches a year.
Forgive me, for those that don't understand what he's saying, all three of those, folk style, freestyle, and Greco, are different forms of wrestling with different rule sets and different outcomes and different goals. Greco-Roman predominantly stand up.
All upper body, yeah.
All upper body. Freestyle is kind of like a flow. It's like a symbiotic relationship between Greco and folk style. And folk style is what you would see most commonly in America, but actually is the least common universally.
Yeah,
You're
so-
going to see a lot more freestyle. I believe
Internationally.
freestyle is the most international.
Well, freestyle and Greco are all international sports.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think freestyle is the most popular worldwide, though.
Yeah, because it's just a faster pace. You score by pushing people out of bounds as well.
Yes.
You hit the mat, you can go to parterre and just lay your chest down, and you know, after 5 seconds, they're going to stand you back up. Just it's predominantly a takedown sport, right?
Yes.
Fast paced, beautiful to watch.
So all three wrestling,
Yeah.
all three completely different rule sets, but you competed in all three.
Year round, from football into folk, and then in the spring I'm in track, and then freestyle. Then in the summer I'm in freestyle, Greco, and track.
Yeah.
So that's just hundreds of competitions.
You're
a
also a
year.
multi-sport athlete, which
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps for sure. And I'm the worst athlete in my family by far.
Wow.
And in my house, even more specifically, growing up as a kid. So when you have that like that, not that you have to be good at it, but if you have that level of competition all the time, you
can rise to the occasion.
You just rise to the occasion, and you just don't get nervous about that stuff. Doesn't mean there's not anxiety sometimes, but I don't believe in pressure because of that. Because I just have to go be the best version of me, whatever that may be. Just like there's nobody does you better than you, right? And I would tell you as your coach, just go be yourself. Don't try to be anybody else. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be this guy. Don't try to be that guy. Go be you. That's what's great about you. Make that person deal with you. And nobody else is going to step in for you. Nobody's got the nerves, the gumption, the huevos to do that. So just go be you. You know what I mean? So I don't believe in pressure. And who's going to say something to me when I accomplish something great or I fail at it, trying to accomplish something great? So I don't worry about other people. You know what I mean? So I don't feel pressure. And then when I walk on the mat, in my head, I'm actually probably physically doing it as well. I'm putting my arms out like a kid, you know, walking around barefoot in grass, just soaring in the summer and feeling the breeze and facing the sun. And I just let go of everything. And then I just go have fun.
Was this something, when you say that the feeling of there is no pressure, was this something that you felt when you first started in sport, or was this something that you learned throughout time? How did you arrive to this destination mentally?
I'm not I don't believe in like I need to have my lucky pair of socks, or I've got to have.
You're not superstitious.
Not at all. Like I've got to have this pair of gloves, because I think when you do that, that's when everything goes left. So we've all seen it. Like people freak out, especially fighters. They freak out when they don't have.
They need their routine.
They need the routine. I'm not a person of routine. My routine needs to be me. You know what I mean? And it has to be attached to me. Like I'm gonna go do my stretch. I'm gonna do the things that I need to do to be great. Other than that, I love to challenge myself. So I've fought in places where I flew out by myself. I didn't have a corner. I was trying to wrap my own hands.
God bless.
You know,
Jesus.
but that in taking fights way outside of my weight class, because it was all improving things to myself, or proving things to myself about jiu-jitsu. Like either it was improving who I am internally, or proving how great jiu-jitsu is, and fighting for the love of jiu-jitsu. You know, so
This is, for some people that are listening to this, we have a pretty big portion of our audience is fighters, right? They might hear something like that and it seems a little foreign to them, because right now a lot of fighting, and actually, you know what, I'll go a little bit step further than that. A lot of things in life now are about monetary gain. So when someone says something like, you know, I was traveling to test myself and to push myself and to see what kind of man I was, and I was going out there without a corner, wrapping my own hands because I wanted to push my jiu-jitsu, this might seem like a foreign concept to a lot of people nowadays. What was your reason? Like, I want to ask this question intelligently. Like, where did that drive come from? Were you trying to prove to yourself what kind of man you were? Were you trying to understand what kind of man
Probably
you were?
understand.
Yeah.
I think understand who I was, what I was made of, and then fly the banner. Because we carry a lot of, our team carries a lot of pride in who we are and what we've done to get there. And you've been a part of that. You've been part of that team. So you know that, but imagine being there, 10 or 15 years prior and how much more pure it was then. Like it was different. It was different.
When you say pure, can you elaborate? Do you mean in terms of the reason behind the actions? Like, what do you mean by pure?
Just the love of it and
Gotcha.
the motivation or the why. No politics. It was weird. Like when you step in, and again, remember, they started way before I did. So like it feels like I'm talking about like the old days, but there was days way before me, which is crazy for me to look at and think about the time frame, because I'm second, third generation in my head. And a lot of guys will put me in that first generation. I'm just not. But I guess you go back to the inner sanctum, right? I don't know. But it was a lot of I remember having a lot of offers to fight on cards that were the Gracie jiu-jitsu fighters versus the Muay Thai fighters. And then I'd take those fights and then they'd fall through. Or I'd take the fight and I'd show up to the venue in another state, and then the guy would be like, well, I'm not going to fight him. Well, that's who you signed up to fight. Well, no, I'm not going to fight it. So it was like all these things, and you did these things in order to uphold the family name, or the uphold the jiu-jitsu name, or not just Rodrigo, but Hicks and Gracie, and it was about,
You represented more than just yourself.
100%. And so in that battle, it was all about realizing for me, like how great is jiu-jitsu? Because remember, this happened fast. Like blue belt 9 months, which was uncommon. It took people 4+ years at the time to get a blue belt from him. And I'm here at 9 months, so I'm trying to not only represent that, but also prove to myself what I'm made of, and then also just fly the flag, the jiu-jitsu flag, and like how great we are. But then
Also earn the rank, right? Because there'll be some people that say like, oh, is he really a blue belt?
And which is something I've never. I mean, first of all, I know who I got it from, so that's never been.
That's fair.
I've never
Very
been.
fair.
Never ever been a concern of mine. So when we talked about like that other side of Drew, that's the other side of me. I'll be like, you gonna tell me anything? What are you gonna do? Punch me? I've been punched before. Like that doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? That's when.
It's funny that you say that.
Yeah, but so that's when I have that other side. I'm like, well, you're not going to tell me anything I don't know. I mean, not that we can't all learn, not that we can't all be beat, but my roots are my roots. You're not going to question that ever. That's infallible, So that's all earned in tournaments on the mat, period.
Now, if I may ask, because you also do well for yourself outside of martial arts, was this something that obviously, so if you went to university for football, it's safe to assume that you also got your education
master's degree.
Through that program. So it's not as if, I want to be very careful how I say this because I don't want to sound rude to anybody. It's not as if you needed to fight.
So
You
I'll say it for
had
you. I didn't need to
avenues.
fight. I wanted to fight. My uncle asked my cousin, he's like, so Tracy's doing that fighting stuff? He's like, what's he doing? And then he paused and was like, well, of course he's fighting. That's Tracy. It was just, I have an amazing family. My cousins are more like siblings. And everybody is very close and highly successful.
God bless.
I mean, I'd say the assistant federal DA in one state, or another guy's the president and CEO of a set of hospitals, regional VP of another company, directors. I mean, it's the levels of master's degrees all over the place.
God bless.
And we get together once. We have, I don't know how many tech streams, but we also get together once a month on a Zoom to see how we can help each other level up.
Your family.
My family.
Your cousins.
My cousins, yeah. And life.
That's beautiful.
It is
Can I say that? That's
amazing.
beautiful.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
I've always heard that your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
But if your network can also be family,
Yeah.
that's even more pure. So truly, God bless. That's amazing.
What did Jay-Z said about it being a business and a businessman? Like
I'm
you gotta
not a
find that-
businessman. I'm
I'm
a businessman.
Right, that. So that I would say that encompasses me. That encompasses my family, but also I think sometimes that creates separation from the outside world.
Can you elaborate?
When you're a multifaceted tool in that fashion, and you're that way unselfishly and unapologetically, and when you, I think people sometimes find that that is the rest of the world's not built that way. It's just not. It's not a common thing. So I think that can create some friction, create some problems, and it's like, what's your angle? What are you trying to do?
Because you think that people are trying to understand you and they're maybe miscommunicating, or they don't?
I think a lot of people don't understand me, who I am, motivation, and it's never to get over on anybody else. But I think because most people aren't as multifaceted, I think what we don't know, what we don't understand, we tend to be a little bit scared of.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think that the homeostasis of a human being to the ignorance is fear, for sure.
If you have a foot in both worlds, then it becomes a problem for most people because, they want to keep you at, the jab's length.
It's human history to be afraid of the unknown, or at the very
100%.
least, what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So,
At the end of the day, I'm one of the nicest, kindest people I think you ever meet, and I have zero motivation to get over on anybody. But I think people don't know what they don't understand, or understand what they don't know, and it kind of is like, this is a threat, and it people.
Does it ever shock you? This is something that I'm only 32 years old, right? So there are some things that I think I understand, but believe me, I've surprised myself in the last couple of years. So I subscribe to, I know I don't know anything. That's where I'm at right now. But there are some things that I've observed. One of the things that I find, I don't know if I would say fascinating or underwhelming would probably be the better example of this, is I was surprised to see how much ego is applied to men of a myriad of ways of life. So I'll give you an example. I know some people that are highly successful.
Yeah.
And I know some people that are middle of the road and some people that are probably underachieving, right? I would say that the high successful people, they all have a couple of traits that are in common, right? Discipline seems to be one of them, consistency another one. Another one I would say is like logical thought processes that separate emotion from decision-making scenarios, I would call it.
I would agree with
Basically, their conflict resolution is very logical. Very rarely is it emotional or sensitive or anything like that. They're like, okay, well, this is how the chessboard is laid. These are the moves I have available to me. This is how I'm going to react. And there seems to be a correlation between that conflict resolution and success. And then as I kind of go down that threshold, there might be men that exemplify characteristics. And forgive me, ladies, this is kind of like a...
We're just keeping it simple.
Yeah, forgive me.
just
I'm
keeping it
sure.
simple.
I'm sure it equates to women as well. But I my anecdotal experience
We're
is
going to
that
keep
of
it
a
to us
man.
Neanderthals, right?
As I kind of go down that socioeconomic panel, it seems to be that logic becomes less of a factor. Emotion, sensitivity, ego becomes more of a factor. It's not that ego is eliminated from any of these this ladder. It's just that it is diluted by
Let's
logic.
be clear. Ego is not a bad thing.
No.
It's when it's hubris. Which
Ooh,
is
that's a better way to describe
the
it.
Greek definition of like the bad ego, that it becomes a problem.
Yes.
Ego is what makes you show up again after you get submitted on Thursday. Makes you show up on Tuesday. You get submitted. You show up on Thursday because you're like, man, I got to figure this out, and that's what makes you keep showing up and keep showing. That's not bad ego, right?
Yeah.
That's the good ego. When you start throwing stuff, right, because you got submitted, and how dare that 140-pound guy submit me, or how dare that woman submit me? Well, I mean, she's better than you. I don't know. Get over it and learn from it, and embrace her, and make her your best friend. I think that was one of the first submissions I ever had was Francine, who to this day I wish I knew where she was at, and I love her. And she became my best friend. I wanted to know everything from her. Like, man, if you can submit me as not that because she's a lesser being, but I know as a pretty good
You're
wrestler.
a pretty powerful guy, so if she can get that one on you.
I was like, man, teach me everything. I loved it. It was phenomenal. That meant I was missing that big portion of leverage and technique. And if I can learn it from her, who's not as physical, then I'll be even better. So I wanted to know everything I could from her. God, one of my favorite people ever.
I think it also transcends martial arts, though. So, like, I guess in a lot of ways, I can use the framework of the things. The same things that would make a fighter successful in fighting would make a businessman successful
Sure.
in any other endeavor that they have. Now, two separate fields, however, the consistency
But
of
how
the
you
thought
do
process.
some things is how you do all
Everything.
things,
I
right?
agree with that. I agree with that. And I often say, so sometimes I speak to high school kids. In fact, I'm going to Clayton High School in 2 weeks to do, like, I'm going to go speak to some of the DECA slash business
Yeah.
people there. And one of the things that I always say to everybody is, like, no matter what you do in this world, it's yes, find your passions. Like, some people will like fighting, some people will like math or STEM fields, some people will be into the social sciences, some people will be into whatever it is that you like. I get that. But find the passion of quality in anything that you do. Have the passion of doing a good job, and you'll be fine in life. Whether that is when it snows outside, I want to make sure that my sidewalk is well shoveled.
Have the cleanest bathroom. If you're a janitor, have the cleanest
Yes,
floors that ever
be the
existed.
best at that.
Take pride
Or
in the thing that
strive
you
to
do.
be the best at
So,
that.
so like growing up, like my father, he worked for AT&T, and he started out as doing installs, right? And then he ended up retiring as a president. So I
God bless.
was raised in the South. At that,
All within AT&T, like
yeah, and without a college degree. So as I remember being in high school, he was getting his. So I'm in high school. I'm watching movies on a Friday night with my friends, and he's in the kitchen studying because he's going to DePaul, which is a great university in Chicago, right? But that's how he's getting his bachelor's degree, and he was probably a director at that point. But he didn't have a degree, and he was earning it then when I was a senior in high school. And then when I was in college, he got his master's and when I got my bachelor's. So we have a picture together, both of us in our caps and gowns.
at different levels.
Different levels, which was amazing. I love that I have that. And I
bless.
ended up getting my master's. And I wanted to I don't have it, but I wanted to get my PhD. My father's no longer with us, but I wanted to get my PhD and one up him just so he had to call me Dr. Taylor. But point being, I learned, those things in my own house. When you talk about like meager beginnings and not having a lot, that's the house I grew up in. From literally living in Oklahoma as a kid and in the inner city to a small, country town in Oklahoma to St. Louis, and never even really. I don't think I ever had a bagel until we moved here. So the first time we walked in Breadco was, it was. I mean, it's funny. I laugh at it, but like, look at all this bread. I've seen one of those on TV, but I never had. I think we literally left with, I don't know how many like bags full of bread. It was just crazy to think where we started. And then I was like to say I'm a country boy raised in the city because after that it was just Chicago. So I'm a Chicago kid at heart now. So I feel like I've seen every side of it. But unless you know where you come from, unless you see those things and never forget it, we know that's the saying, right? If you don't know where you came from, you're bound to repeat it. But it's every day. It's like sharpening a saw because I don't care how bad my knees hurt from practice. I had to sit on the side of my parents' bed and do my homework. My dad made sure of that. You can't be an athlete your whole life. You have to have an education. And he's like, you can't play football forever. You can't wrestle forever. You have to have a brain. You have to be smart. And it was just drilled in my head. So I was the same way with my kids. And you do what you want. You can re-engineer it. I figured I'll get the degree and do what I want. Then I'm going to go fight. Or I'm going to go play football. I'm going to do this. Now you can't tell me no.
Exactly.
And I tell Hickson the same thing. Hickson wants to go fight. But I'm like, yeah, well, get your degree first and we'll talk about it.
You can do both.
You can do
That's
both.
what I did. I fought as an amateur and then while I was going to school. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. You said it earlier that you chose to fight and you didn't have to fight. And I thought of fighting in the same way.
Yeah.
I was like, there are guys in this room right now that this is the only walk of life that they have.
Sure.
And I felt like it gave me, I don't want to say like a one up on them, but it made me feel like powerful because I was like, hey,
sure.
you feel like you have to be here. This feels like work for you. This is a privilege for me. Sure. I'm enjoying coming to the mats and getting this work in. At any moment, I can step away from this. And when the time came to step away from this, I was able to do it and didn't miss a beat.
So I wholeheartedly agree. But this is what's strange about it is in another way, I also had to. Because it was part of who I was and a part of me I couldn't deny. Like my uncle said, Tracy's like, well, of course he is. That's who he is. So there's these things that my family knows about me. Well, of course you're fighting.
In terms of like the physical outlet?
The physical outlet, the mentality. That's just 100% who that kid is. Of course he's fighting. He's doing that. But we also know the expectations on this side. He's a whole lot of all these things. And I'm a whole lot of things. So in the same way that I knew I didn't have to fight, I also knew I had to fight. I'm not a businessman or businessman, you know, like, so I had to do those things because I had to have that outlet. It had to go somewhere.
I'll piggyback off of that.
Yeah.
If you would have told me right out of college I didn't have fighting, and you told me to go into a cube 9 to 5, I probably would have lost my mind.
Absolutely.
If I had like no physical outlet, I probably would have lost my mind. It was in very much a way equally therapeutic for me as a young man to have that outlet, physically speaking, and then also to experience those range of emotions, because I did feel like for the longest time work was not the passion. Work was the thing that I had to do to make, you know, to pay the bills. Yeah, exactly. And then that fighting was my passion. It recently in my life, with getting married and having a kid, those passions kind of shift. And this is why I think that I don't want to say that, like, you know, having kids is for everyone, but I like to think that everyone that has kids, it makes them a better version of themselves, because it gives them something to think about past themselves. So when I had my daughter and subsequently I married my wife, it kind of was like, up until that point, I was a single guy. So like whatever I wanted to do, I did. If I wanted to fight, I fought. If I wanted to train or didn't want to train or whatever the fuck I wanted to do, I did. But once I started applying additional responsibilities to my list, my passions for, not necessarily, I don't want to just say like earning money, right? But like my passions for providing for my family were completely different.
Your paradigm.
It wasn't even just about like, okay, how much money am I making? It's more of like, you said earlier about, you know, the way you grew up, and then you're trying to instill some of those values in your kids. It's like, I want to have those problems too. I think that's a very good place to be. For me to struggle for my daughter to learn the lessons I learned, just not the way I learned them, because the quality of the life that I'm providing to her is infinitely greater than the quality of life that I had when I was younger, in terms of monetary. You know what I mean? Because I think you would probably agree with this. Even though you probably grew up poor, I'm sure you felt loved. I'm sure you felt admired and respected by your father, and I'm sure your mother as well, but I don't know the familiar structure.
She's amazing. I feel completely supported in my entire family. So even like when I think about within the structure of our physical home, I know we didn't have a lot, but I know externally the rest of our family looked at us and thought we had more than they did, which moved us across the country in order to get that. I know my parents always tried to present situations better than what they were as a team, but you know, one-on-one, sometimes things were presented quite differently to us. So you always knew the reality, you know what I mean? And I appreciate that. So it's strange when you have kids and you can do more for them at an earlier stage in your life, you know?
Strange?
It's
Doesn't
just
it feel
no,
great?
it feels phenomenal.
Okay.
But it's when you take a step back, you're like, man, I didn't have I didn't have orange juice in the house. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I didn't have
a full fridge.
Yeah, all these things. I didn't have here's a caveat. I'm a little bit over a year out of a long-term relationship, right? And I have the most amazing bonus kids, and she was amazing. But when I look at the life we provided those kids, and I would sometimes walk to the cupboard, I'd be like, literally looking at all the stuff. I'm like, you know, but she came from a different place growing up than I came from. You know what I mean? Like it was just like I didn't have all that stuff, and we could afford.
She used to abundance, and you weren't.
Yeah. I wasn't used to all that abundance, and you know we could do it, so it was great. I loved that we had that opportunity, but it was just sometimes I was like, wow, like you know, it just wasn't like that growing up, where we could, you know. So there's hot dog buns, hamburger buns, and there's Wonder Bread. You know what I mean? Like you got options. You got Wonder Bread. Wonder Bread had to work for the burger, for the hot dog, for the whatever. You know, it was just, you know, that's just how it was. You know.
I often look back at my own childhood. We had very similar upbringings where I always say this, like, we were poor with money, but overwhelmingly wealthy with love. Like, my parents did a great job of giving me what I needed, not necessarily always what I wanted. But when I look back at I didn't always have money for the new shoes, right? Yeah. But you know what my mom could do? She would get $40 together for like that season of basketball or whatever. Yeah. I didn't have the nicest backpack, but if I wanted to do some sort of school extracurricular that was like $15 at the time, which you guys got to remember, $15 back in 2002, 2003, that's like the equivalent of like $50 now. Sure. I hate to say it like that, but it felt like it. And my parents were poor, so like I look back when I was young, I used to think like, man, we're broke, we're this, we're that. And I kind of carried that a little bit with me. But now at 32, I look back and I think to myself like, Mom, Dad, You guys did a great
Amazing
job
job.
with the cards that you were dealt and the places that we were at in that life. And then I look at me and my brother now, and I think they did such a great job with such scarcity that I now feel pressure as a father. I don't want to say I feel pressure. That's a bad word to describe. I feel like the onus is on me now of like, okay, if my parents could do it with a fourth
Bro,
of
you're,
what
you're,
I have.
you're on the clock.
Yes.
You're,
Like,
it's okay.
like what am I
But
doing
that's
now?
what makes you successful.
I
You're,
hope.
you're holding yourself accountable.
I hope. I think to
And you have a
myself,
standard to live up to.
I'll give you this too. I think good parents do something in kids, and this is one thing that I hope my daughter gets from me, and that's an admiration of the effort. At the time, I didn't understand it, but now as I get older and I start to experience some of the things that for as a parent for the first time, I also kind of recollect back to when I was a kid. I'm like, this is what my mom and dad did at similar intervals, at similar kind of junctions where like they could have gone left or right and they chose a path, right? And then it gives me a little bit more nuance into their decision making and more appreciation. The older I get, the more I admire my parents. If that makes sense.
No, 100%. When I like at St. Charles MMA, I taught a ton of kids classes. And one thing, there was probably not one class that went by where I wouldn't suggest heavily to the kids that they thank their parents for bringing them.
Yeah.
And suggest that they thank their parents for the sacrifices they make for the things that they do every day, because I understood what that was like and how important that was. One of my former students who's teaching at a different team I went to one of his classes a couple of weeks ago, and literally he was doing the same thing. I was like, man, that's really cool. That really resonated with him, and now he's teaching the exact same way, talking about the importance of doing that for those kids, and to see how the visceral reaction to that, which is, I just wanted them to understand how important they were, and I wanted the kids to understand how much respect they should have for the sacrifices their parents are making. And I was so glad that I did that, but I forgot that I did that, quite honestly, until I saw him doing it, and he mentioned that I had taught him that. So it was cool. I think, yeah, it's okay for us to be on a shot clock. It's okay for us to pay homage. I tell my mother almost daily how how much I'll be there for her, and I've got her, because when I couldn't take care of myself, you took care of me. So eternally, I've got her back. It doesn't matter. Period. Like, that's, from the womb to the tomb.
Can I tell you something that is kind of prevalent in American culture? And I am an American, okay? So, like, I'm not an Albanian American. I'm an American Albanian, right? Like, I came here when I was young. I love this country. It gave me everything that I have, my education, my abundance, everything, right? But one of the things that I don't necessarily kind of agree with in American culture is, like, senior living or, like, separating the elderly from family. And I think to myself, like, so my mother passed away when I was younger, but my father is still alive, and me and my brother take care of him. So, like, by no means does my father have to live with us, okay? And I'm not saying that, like, move in your parent.
Sure.
My father doesn't want to live. I've tried to get him to. I'm like, Dad, just come stay with us, and you can babysit the daughter whenever I need you to, or anything like that. It's not like it's free.
Right,
You'll
right.
provide me value as well.
Right.
And he tells me, he's like, I don't want to burden you guys. I'm like, it's not a burden, but that's how he feels. I can't. A father and a mother at that age is weird because, like, in a lot of ways, he's kind of like my friend, my kid, but I can't tell him what to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's amazing.
But we take care of my father financially, and it's one of the greatest, like, one of the things that I enjoy the most about my life now, providing for my daughter, providing a life for my father who worked his ass off when I was little to provide everything to me and my brother, you know what I mean? But there's not a I would never outsource that to a retirement home. I would never outsource that to any of the things. If it got to the point where he was, like, sick, I would force him to live with me, even if it was against his will, because I'd rather watch over him than a nurse or something. Not saying anything to nurses. This is just how I personally feel. The nurse would come to my house and watch over my father with me.
Your focus is being there for your people.
Yeah, because I think this extends past martial arts. The same way we have the respect and admiration for the people that taught us a skill set, I have for the people that gave me the life I live.
Here's another question. Not to cut you off, but let me ask you, do you think that is more of being a minority than it is more, I mean, there it is. Do you think it's because you're a minority? Because you are, right? You're historically, ethnically, you are. So I think those are things that might, in some cases, statistically speaking, might be more prevalent in a minority culture.
Can you expand the question? Do you think that being a minority?
You showing up for your parents in that way, in that point of view, I think is more prevalent in cultures that minority cultures.
Okay, I would say that that could possibly be a factor, but I would also say that I think one of the things, and I might get a lot of flack for this, but one of the things that American culture is desperately lacking in is that respect for the previous generation. I don't know if
So
it's
where
because
do you
I'm
have it from?
foreign. I have it.
But I didn't say foreign.
Yeah,
There's
fair.
a difference between saying foreign and being ethnic and being an ethnic
Fair.
minority.
I'll say it like this, and this is the rawest form. It comes from the fact of how I was raised. I was blessed to have really good young mentors in my life, from my parents being my first mentors. Then Devon Ford, shout out to you, sir. He was a great wrestling coach and really helped shape me as a young man. And the lessons that I learned, I don't know if it's, I don't think it's because I'm a minority. I think it's because I had really good people at every intricate stage of my life that taught me well. I am extremely lucky that I had the right people at the right time to instill the right things in me. And it was a wide berth of people. My parents were Albanian, obviously. Devon Ford is a black man from North Carolina, right? North Carolina. And then after that, I have a mentor in Matt Croak, who's, you know, your typical wealthy white man. But I've had this wide variety of individuals that have taught me a lot. And all of these people, even though they don't look alike or they come from the same walk of life,
Sure.
they shared a commonality: respect, dignity in your work, honesty, and more importantly, you know, appreciation for those that have given to you.
Let's be clear. Be clear. Good people are good people. right?
Correct.
Regardless of skin tone and level of education.
If my parents were bad people, I don't think I would think this. Like, if I hate to say it this way, but let's say hypothetically, I didn't feel like we were loved as young kids. I don't think I would want to take care of my father. And this is kind of something that I want to talk about, because we're going to talk about your son and being a father.
Remember, though, I told my mother, because when I couldn't take care of myself, you were there for me to take care of me. How do you not pay that back in spades?
You know what, then? I want to actually retract my previous statement. I don't think it's maybe an American culture. Maybe there was a lot of people that as parents did not step up and do the right job.
maybe just had
And then when
crappy
it came
parents,
time for that to be reciprocated, it was in kind.
Or they had amazing parents and they're just selfish pricks.
Also possible.
Yeah, that's very possible.
I guess maybe to the point about like the minority, though, I will say that in Albanian culture specifically, it is much more common for, you ever hear the term like it takes a village to raise kids, right? Or something like that. It's just how I was raised. It's like the norm.
Yeah,
What do you mean?
walk out
The
street-
grandparents are going to live with you.
Or when you're on the block and your parents aren't home, the neighbors
They hold you accountable.
Right.
Get your ass home. It's the street lights are on.
Sure,
Absolutely.
And I do that. So so it was a question. I don't know. Just wanted to see what your
No, it
perspective
was a good question.
Yeah. And I I'm the same way with any.
Do you think that that's a variable for you though? Because you are a minority as well. So like, would you say that that applies to you?
I'd also say it's the only thing I know is being a minority.
Fair.
That's fair. So I'd want to say yes. However, it's all I know.
Can I ask?
Please.
Can I ask a question though? The term minority obviously means minor caucus in a number of people, right? So like it could be a minority of skin tone. There are less black people than there are white people. Therefore, you're a minority.
Right.
It could also be intellect. It could also be education. There are less master degree holders
Sure.
than bachelor degree or secondary education, so high school diploma. So like a minority.
So we're speaking ethnic minority.
Yeah, I mean, it could also be intellectual minority. It can also be a wealthy minority. I don't know these things about you.
I'd say because I'm an ethnic minority.
Okay.
We're speaking from those terms. But that I don't like the phrase "but" because that sounds so. It's got a negative connotation. However, I prefer to use "however." I have to catch myself. I am the least. Man, I have love for everybody. And,
God bless.
And it kills me when people would accuse me of anything less. It's just because they don't know me. Like, I understand. Hey, you were around the gym. You and I never really talked a whole lot. And I know sometimes people take that the wrong way, but sometimes I just keep to myself.
You were just a stoic guy.
Yeah, I just keep to myself. And it's when people don't know and they talk to me, then we're going to be great forever. And you'd be at the house and you never leave in the house. And you know what I mean? Like, I welcome people and I welcome people and I welcome people, but I just don't always talk a lot either. So it's sort of the tale of two cities. It's never that I don't like somebody. Sometimes I'm just straight ahead and I'm just kind of doing my own thing and I'm just in my head. And then later I'm like, oh, I hope that person doesn't think that I don't like them. I'm just kind of in my own way, doing my own thing. Sometimes I get accused of being stuck up. Sometimes I get accused of these other things. It's like, well, it's never that. I'm the most down-to-earth person you'll ever meet, and I care about everybody. But I also don't care at the same time. I don't really care what people think about me. I care how I treat people. That makes a difference to me.
I would say that I agree with that in the sense that I also do not necessarily care if I'm understood. But would you add a caveat to this? And maybe you wouldn't. So I agree with the quote, I don't care what you think about me. However, my caveat to that is you might not like me. You might not like the way I dress or the way that I talk or that I present myself, but there will still be a certain level of respect. Yeah. So like there will be people that I might not necessarily jive with. Perhaps we do disagree on some really key topics. And for me, that's like, you know what? I don't dislike you, man. I just don't really want to be around you. But I'll still have respect for maybe their 100%. Body of work. There are people that in the MMA community, yes, yeah. Or just like what you've achieved. Yeah. Like I can separate the individual from the accomplishments, and then that'll still give me something to admire about them, even if it is that perhaps we are like oil and water as personalities. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah, you're not going to jive with everybody.
Yeah. I just, as a individual, as a man, as a human, I just don't in general dislike people. And I read people within the first 20 seconds, and I'm very rarely wrong. But I just don't really dislike people. I think most people have a redeemable quality. And if I don't like you, you probably don't have a redeemable quality.
Mm. You know How many people would fall in that category in your
Very
life?
Few.
Very few.
And there's people I don't get along with, but it doesn't mean I don't like them or I don't respect them as a human. And I would still give them the shirt off my back, and I'd throw water on them if they were on fire. It's very rare that I would not do that. So
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that should be the minority of the case of like people that you feel are irredeemable.
Yeah.
I have very few people on this planet that I genuinely dislike.
But as a guy, we're unique, and sometimes we're in our shallowness is a ton of depth because I cannot like you. You've done me wrong, and I hate you, and hate. You know what I mean? And we're guys, so I'm gonna punch you, and then we're gonna have a beer, and everything's gonna be all right. I may not F with you,
but if they see the same way as you. And that's the thing, right? That disconnect of like, we were talking a little bit about off the record, and I'd like to bring it in now, is like that masculine aspect. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I said off the record was, one of the things I kind of deeply dislike right now that's happening in real time is, the term influencer is thrown out a lot, and it's kind of like a broad term. It's a verb, an adjective, a noun as well. It's like someone with influence is an influencer, go figure, right?
Right.
But these influencers, the message that they can have can be, the chasm is wide on this one. And one of the things that I don't want to say I worry about, but I do kind of ponder is the masculine red pill / manosphere people, because I had very good role models for what masculinity should have been when I was younger. Now, to be completely frank with you, if there are inadequacies in my masculinity, it is not a reflection of them, it's a reflection of me, that I have fallen short on some of these lessons. But I know for a fact that I had very good, stoic, quiet, powerful, intelligent men around me throughout my life that have helped shape me. So any inadequacies I have is a failure of me as an individual, not of them. But I feel like there are a growing number of men who are not blessed with strong mentors at precise moments, right? Like to have that mentor as a teenager should be your father predominantly. Right. To have that mentor maybe in your 20s could be your first employer, maybe a professional developer, perhaps it's your jiu-jitsu instructor, whoever it is that kind of takes on that role. I feel like there is a deep need for strong, capable, ethical mentors for men. And because this need is not being fed, it's being outsourced. And I'm not necessarily too keen on the ones that are being outsourced too.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. What do you think about the state of men, masculinity today in the year of our Lord 2025?
So the phrase we talked about specifically was alpha male, alpha maleness. and I said immediately, I hate that phrase, and I only use it in a situation with somebody who truly, and I can use it as just like very flippantly, and we'll know what we're talking about. But I don't like to use that phrase because, as you said, most people that try to use that phrase all the time are not alpha males.
No.
They're wannabes, and that's I hate that. Just be who you are, and people are gonna love you, hate you, whatever. Who cares? I don't think as men we show up enough for the people around us. Typically, I also hate when you're attempting to show up for folks in the most organic way possible, and you're just judged for it, and you're not doing enough. Like sometimes I think expectations are very unreasonable. And can I give you an example of that? I'm not certain, I'm not putting that on women. I put that on society to an extent, and which means I have to put it on some women, but just society as a whole, but not all women. Obviously, that's not fair. I think it's my father was amazing. I had a great example, and I don't remember my father ever missing work. Noted, right? That sticks. I don't remember him ever complaining. Noted, that sticks. I remember my father falling down the steps at the house, and I was like, man, that really had to. How are you, like, everything's upside down. How do you recover? It was bad. Got up, went to work, did the thing, never heard him complain about any of that. We've all been in those situations, and you know what you felt, you know what you had to do. And that man worked for the same company for 39 years and just got up and went, didn't complain, and made the best of it and soared. You know what I mean? And soared every single day. So when you have those kind of examples in front of you, I think you want to live up to those things. I think it's your obligation to live up to that and to be that person in society and with the people that you interact with and the people that you hold closest to you. But when you're trying to do those things and you're not failing we're all going to fail, right? But you're in general
fall short.
We're all going to fall short, right? That's not a fail. You all fall short. Then you hope you fall up, right? You learn, you do better, which is human. And then people find a way to find you lacking and less than. I think it's not fair. And I think occasionally people take advantage of that, which isn't fair either. Because when you have intent and your intent's to do the right thing and your heart's in the right place, we have to give people a pass,
I think that two things can be correct at the same time.
Yeah.
I think that you can mean well and miss the mark, but I do also think that over a prolonged period of time, constantly missing the mark and constantly meaning well but not executing is also incorrect. Does that make sense?
100, yeah.
Like if you make a mistake, I'm with you. I'm willing to give you the grace of
Yeah.
God. In fact, I'll give you a lot of grace. Like I get it. Just like you were saying, like you want to kind of fail upwards, and as long as the failures are still creating that gap of like progress, then whatever, right? That's the human condition. However, there are some people that will take that grace and run with it and continue to make the same mistakes, quote unquote mistakes.
Right.
I would say that, 1 point is a data plot, 2 is a trend, right? So that's my thing on that.
And there's a ton of men that way.
Yes. Yeah. And that's my problem is like what you said, I agree 100% with. However, there will be those that use that goodwill and sully that and sully that. Yes, you're absolutely correct.
Advantage of it.
And that's the
and
part.
Those are the ones that give, well, like I mentioned to women, those are the ones that give them the ammunition
for other men.
And thank you for helping me sort that out, because you're saying I'm like, I need to expand on that. And that's why sometimes those unrealistic expectations are, because you have to deal with that. Like the man or the bear in the woods. Oh yeah, you're gonna pick the bear every time.
That was such a stupid.
It was stupid, but however, I get it, because man, there's some crappy.
Yeah, but the hyperbolic nature.
It's so hyperbolic.
It's the same way I feel about the political sphere. It's not just about politics. Perhaps it's about a myriad of topics in life. Surely we as a society can acknowledge the outliers.
Yeah.
And then call them such.
Sure.
That is not the norm. Yes, there are extenuating circumstances, but if I am to believe that the majority of women would rather feel safer with a wild bear than a man, is that redeemable then? At what point do we say, okay, then what the fuck are we doing as a society?
Right.
Why are we even
Now,
trying?
Let me ask you this. Do you have a child? Boy or girl?
Girl.
Okay. How old is she?
She'll be 3 in 13 days.
So it gets interesting as they get older.
Oh, I
Now,
bet.
I'm not saying that, and you're 100% right in your statement. And part of it can be as things change and becomes a little bit less hyperbolic, is that she has a choice in the matter of who she picks, right?
Yes.
And her picker could just be broken. I have male friends whose pickers are broken, and I admonish them. Who do you have a right to admonish anybody? But sometimes you just do, right? Like, what are you doing, you big dummy? Like, don't do that. Love you. But
Do better.
there you go. Do better. Just do better. That's all we have. Just do better. But it becomes interesting. But again, back to personal responsibility. You're just picking the wrong ones, because I like to think that most people are good. But I get it. But that also means that there's a problem. If we're going to be that hyperbolic, that means that there's a problem, and there's something we should probably change, and there's something we should probably coach up. It's a little extreme. I get that. But sometimes you have to be extreme in making a point, because I've met some really, really crappy people, and I've always tried to be the opposite of that. And then you understand why people react that way, because their interactions have been just quite the opposite. And that doesn't. But I didn't do that. It's not my fault. It's not your fault necessarily. But it doesn't mean I don't have to uphold my end of it, though, too.
Okay, I think I know where you're going with this, and I want to say that I agree with probably 95% of it, but let me add a different variable to
Please.
you, and I would be curious to hear what you say. While I will acknowledge that right now, a lot of people sort of carry the debt load of previous relationships, or
It's also not my fault. I'm not him.
exactly,
Exactly.
100%.
And I'll say that quickly. I'm not him.
But I don't think that's isolated to a gender. I have seen, I'm sure we all know the guy that went through a bad divorce and then became a woman hater, right? The guy like all these bitches and all this other stuff. I know some guys like that. And I also know some girls where I have a friend who she committed to a man. You're talking about like the picker as a woman, right? Like she committed to a man, did all the things that a woman should do, was like recessive, was soft, was like, trying to do all, but the guy did not want to commit to her. So she spent like 7, 8 years of her life, those prime years from like 21 to 29, roughly, not getting married, to the point where she was like, listen, I want kids, I want commitment, I want this. And I thought I was giving you everything you wanted, when clearly they were not on the same page. So I think it goes back to my comment about that mentorship and masculinity, because I actually think that you can't have femininity without masculinity, and you can't have masculinity without femininity. My wife makes me a better man, at least right now, and hopefully forever, right?
Sure.
She gives the grace where I need it, and she allows me to be the man that I can be. Like she will amplify me, right? And I know this sounds kind of like obtuse and like, oh, Aaron, we get it, your marriage is great. That's not what I'm trying to say.
It sounds like the way it should be.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
I think that I don't have anything special. I think I have something that we all should have. Like this should be the norm.
This is what it should be. This is
I
what you
give
work
her
for.
respect. I give her the roses that she deserves. And then she also in return gives me mine. Now, how did we arrive to this? I like to think that she had great mentors like her mother, and she has sisters, and the previous relationships that she has had, and then I had great role models, and we kind of like aligned that. And this is my thing about how we have this schism between the genders right now, where you're talking about previous instances where like someone is harboring that previous debt load and then kind of like amplifying that onto you, and you're like, oh, hey, I am not that guy. I did not do these things to you. But that is like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? If we had a greater source of true noble masculinity, perhaps we would have better men. And if we had better men, then the women would have better outcomes with mate choice. And if they had better outcomes with mate choice, we would have less of this debt load from previous relationships. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say?
I would, every, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, I would give my ex flowers, right? And if it was, let's say Mother's Day, we'll still go Mother's Day. Our oldest has a son and a daughter, and I would ensure that she got those as well, because she was a mother, so I wanted to celebrate her. But it was important for me that she understood how she was supposed to be treated, and I didn't want to carry the debt load, but I didn't want her to carry any debt at all, and know that not all guys are this way, and for her or the younger daughter to be impressed by somebody's dusty, dirty son, who the first time they put you on a plane, you thought that guy was
The man.
Yeah, right. The bee's knees, whatever. I wanted, like this is how you're supposed to be treated every day, and I wanted them to see that. It doesn't mean I was perfect, but it means that I cared about them understanding who they were and how they should be treated, and what a man was. So yeah, I agree with you.
I worry because, like, to go back to like my original point of like, I don't know when it happened, and I'm not learned enough to understand the nuances of it. All I know is like the objective reality of what I'm seeing. I am seeing less marriages. I'm seeing less fruitful relationships. And by the way, I have friends that are women. I have friends that are men. Some of the complaints I'm hearing from both parties is like, okay, well, if you're saying the things you're saying and you're saying the things you're saying, you guys should be on the same page. You're talking about how you want to settle down and have kids. You're talking about how you want like a strong woman to like support you in your and pursue with you a noble family. Like there should be no delta between you two. Yet it seems as if zero communication is being done. Me and my wife, we often talk because, you know, like once you, this is what I think, like once you get married or even once you start dating seriously, your friend groups start to mesh. Like her friends are now my friends are now her friends, kind of thing. So we often discuss like the intricacies of their relationships and everything. And we both have come to the conclusion of like, dude, what is, like, we don't know what's going on.
So so if we really want people to hate this podcast,
Go ahead.
Let's bring up something, right? We know that there's femininity and there's independence and there's a modern woman, and I'm by no means saying that that's wrong. I love independent women. So for argument's sake, we can say, yeah, you want to be treated independently, but you also want this guy to pay for every meal. You also want him to show up with flowers. You also want. So are we? I'm not saying I agree or disagree with any of these things. Just posing a question.
Yeah.
So on the other side of that, you know, what kind of relationship do we want? Do we want the good old fashioned, for lack of a better way to put it, leave it to Beaver, you know, gender role type relationship? And as you said before, two things can be right at the same time, and that's really probably where we're going to rest on this whole thing as I cut through the argument. It's okay. I'm giving you permission, women, to have jobs and careers and have kids and be phenomenal. Who am I, right? It's okay for two things to be right. It's okay for women to make way more money than men. It's okay for her to have high six figures and for him not to. And it's okay for her to still want kids. And it's okay for her to want him to pick up the bill. And it's okay for her to pick up the bill. And it's okay for her to whisk him away to the lake for the weekend and for him not to feel like, you know, submissive. It's okay for each relationship to feel individual and for everybody to feel loved. Because this relationship doesn't have to be like that relationship. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes we have to get out of our own way and understand that times are just changing. And you know, I don't know. It's just like, I think sometimes people get caught up in what they think things should be, what they want them to be, and you're not accepting what is. And I'm trying to remember what Bob Marley said. Like he made this like
I want to love you.
and he shot the sheriff too. But he said something like very simple. If you have a woman that loves you, like love her, like meet her where she's at. And I'm very much simplifying what he said, but sometimes we just make it too complicated. And I'm speaking out of my own experiences and the stuff I've done and that things I didn't do right. And sometimes it's just be that, like meet them where they're at. And by them, I mean the other person, him, her, whoever, and just exist there. You know, let them, like the book, let them.
Can we double click on this? Because I there's also a portion of this podcast that I want to spend on another topic, but I really like this conversation right now. My question for you is, do you feel like the nature of relationships has changed to become overly romantic to the point of inconsistency with reality? And the reason I bring that up is when I chose my wife and my wife chose me, I don't believe in like the Disney fairy tale love. I don't believe in that. I love my wife. She's the best woman outside of my mother I've ever met in my life. And she was the only woman that I wanted to have children with. And I don't believe that you love someone unless you want to have children with them. I will get flack for that. Because if you love someone truly...
That's how you feel.
Yeah. This is my thought process.
Yeah, this is your... Yeah.
If I love this person... Now, granted, there's always like the physical boundaries. Like, so if you're older, like let's say you're getting together at like 50, obviously this has eclipsed you. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying if you're 21 years old and you love somebody... Like, I love my wife, and I love the things about her that I'm like, dude, I want to have children with you. You exemplify characteristics that, for me, like, my monkey brain is like, this woman will make great children, and she will raise great children with me, kind of thing. Now, the only reason I bring that up is I feel like there are two variables that are missing now more than ever. One is true communication. I hear demands from both sides, but not a willingness to give ground. So it's like you're telling me what you want as a man, and then she's telling me what she wants as a woman, but we're not talking to each other about these, about like where we can meet common ground. I'll explain it to you as a business. Let's say you're providing a good or a service, and there's a person who's wanting to buy that, and you're like, this is going to be $100 a unit, and they're like, well, I can only afford 50. Well, okay, well then what are we going to do? Just go away and not do any business? No, we're going to figure it out. Okay, well maybe maybe the first iteration we'll do 50, but with the connotation that we are going to have to increase, you will give some ground in order to get some ground later, and you'll start to invest in that person. So the number one thing I think we're missing is between the genders is communication.
100%.
And the second, and I hate to say it this way because I have benefited from it as a man, is the over proliferation of sex. Sure. It used to be, and this is coming from a guy who, like, I am talking out of both sides of my ass on this one. Because when I was a young man, I used to think that having sex made you a man. Like, okay,
gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, look at me, I'm the man because she'll sleep with me.
Yeah.
Now I realize that is actually the easiest thing to get nowadays, and it's actually locking down a woman and providing and building something with her. That is the hard thing to do now.
Yeah.
I think it's both of those. The lack of communication, the transparency between the genders, and I'm sorry, but maybe we would be served to have I'm not saying like, wait till you're married. I'm not going to say...
You're saying don't lead with.
Yes, yes.
So I don't know if I'm going to take the same direction, maybe. But I think if it were mathematically possible to be like, I agree with you 200% on communication, I do. I mean, I think that's the rise and fall of everything.
I agree.
Even in friendships, communication is so key. It's ridiculous.
Transparency of thought.
Yeah, man, I can't even begin to. We could talk for hours, right? So yes, I agree with you. Bless you. The Pope, yes. As far as sex, I despise, like the locker room mentality.
Agreed.
That I don't get it. I've never understood it. I didn't understand it when I was 15. I didn't understand it when I was 20.
I think that is toxic masculinity.
I think
Truly.
that is the true definition of toxic masculinity. But what is that? It's I'm trying to impress you because I'm trying to live up to you. I'm trying to be you. And I think people that do that are literally like they're insecure. It's an insecurity.
I agree.
And when I hear those things, I really try not to judge. I try to understand. And my understanding is that, okay, so what happened in life? What happened to you? It's sort of the show me in a doll where they touched you. You know what I mean? To be comical about it. And it's just like, yeah, you were failed someplace. I get it. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And now you're trying to live up to this thing. And now I appreciate that you think I'm a person that you need to impress. But you don't have to. Just be you. And I dislike, and I've never been that way. I've never understood it. And that's not to say that in a personal relationship like sex isn't important.
No,
that's
very much
a whole different.
That's that's not what I'm saying.
I know
intimacy is very important,
and that's the better way to put it. And I was going to actually literally use that word. Intimacy is very important, but that other thing is, I don't understand it. I never have. I never understood being in the locker room and being like, you know what I did last night, and that doesn't make sense to me. You don't have to prove anything to me. You don't ever. Nobody's got to prove anything to me. People showing up for me proves everything to me. Open dialogue proves everything to me. People showing me who they are at their weakest moments proves everything to me. People being human, people making mistakes, that proves things to me. Because none of us are perfect.
Agreed.
I mean? So, yeah, I don't. That is very much. So when we talk about like the phrase alpha male, we're talking about toxic masculinity, and I really honestly I hate that phrase just as much as alpha maleness, but it's also a very necessary phrase to use because toxic masculinity exists.
I think it is overused, but it also exists.
It very much
They can be both true at the same time. Do I think that a lot of things are chalked up and used, toxic masculinity is used to represent things that aren't toxic? Yes. However, do I believe that there are aspects of masculinity that have, with unregulated, with unfettered access to doing whatever it is that you want to do, will become toxic 100%. We all know the guy that peacocked too much, or the guy that will step over will leave corpses in his wake
Sure.
to achieve the next thing. I think these are not necessarily conducive to a healthy society, or I'll go a step further, to a healthy individual. I think toxic masculinity will eventually implode that individual as well. It's not healthy.
I also hate the phrase mansplaining until it's true. Because
Yeah.
and I know that's kind of comical. Then I'll be like, that MF right there is mansplaining, you know. But I'm like, maybe just because I hate putting people in boxes, and that's probably more what it is. And then all of a sudden, somebody's doing. I'm like, yep, he's mansplaining. We got to do better. We got to do better. We
Do
have to
better.
Do better. Like, what are we
gonna be
doing?
the title of the
You are
podcast.
mansplaining right now. I'm like, yeah, there's a point. You got a point. Yep, you're the bear in the woods. I get it. So I don't know. Whatever.
So I guess to kind of put a pin on this part of the conversation, the initial thought that I have is I don't necessarily have an answer for this. I think that it's slowly remedying itself right now, because what's happening is there's a subsection of men who have listened to these people and aren't necessarily getting the outcomes they desired, and it's starting to implode on itself, right? The difference between right and wrong is time. And that's definitely the case here, where if you listen to these people over a prolonged period of time and you're not necessarily getting the outcome you want, well, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect a different result, right? And I think that's kind of happening in real time now. Unfortunately, it seems like it lasted far too long than it needed to, but it's kind of coming on to its own. But then the opposite of that is, because we were talking about, the gender and how the genders and how they kind of react to this. I do feel for the women, because right now you have the greatest number of single women who are wanting potential mates.
I couldn't imagine being a woman. Oh my
Couldn't
God.
or could?
I cannot.
Oh, yeah,
It would be so hard. It would be so hard, because I think in general, a lot of guys are just shitty. Unfortunately, a lot of guys just are, and we're not evolved enough, and they just mature so much faster than us. And I'm not saying there's the superior sex by any means, but it's just tough. I think it's tough to be a woman. And we just, as general as guys, we have to do better. We have to evolve more. We have to want more for ourselves. And I am not of the opinion that a woman cannot raise a young man, but I do think it's so much more beneficial when a man is in a young man's life.
Agreed.
To help raise that young man. Women are amazing. They're strong. My mother, my cousins, my aunts, incredibly evolved human beings. I wouldn't be the man I am without them. I wouldn't be the man I am without my own father. But it took them to get me where I'm at as well. But, my son's mother's not really in his life. But I knew from, and I'm by no means bashing her, because I tell him, like, hey, have you called your mom? Did you call your mom? Because I think that's important. You know what I mean? Not only do I not want him to ever have relationship or mommy issues, but it's important that he understand that's your mother. You need to talk to her. Like, that's important to me. But I knew from literally day one that it would be he and I one day. And I can't explain that so much as the universe told me that, God told me that, whatever. I don't know, whatever you believe in. That thing told me it would be he and I one day. And I knew that, and I accepted that.
Can you, let's take a step back, just so I understand the context. When you say that you knew that it was going to be you and him, meaning the woman that you had a child with, you knew that at some point she would be out of the equation?
Yeah. And was there a sign or a hint? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Were you, forgive me, I'm going to probe a little bit. Were you guys married at the time?
We were in a committed relationship.
Got you.
But I just knew, and that's nothing negative about her. It's nothing, and I'm saying nothing like that. I'm not saying that she did something or that she didn't do something. It's so much as I just knew it would be he and I. And I would be the one that would be there for him the rest of his life. I knew I would end up raising him.
Forgive me for asking this, because I didn't ask this before. Are you single right now?
Yeah.
Okay, so no relationship whatsoever, not like a girlfriend or anything like that.
There's
we're out and about. We're
situationships.
out and about.
Situationships there.
So then I'm
date,
sitting here trying to propagate the current situation. I'm going to just flat out ask you, what is it like dating in today's day and age for you right now? What are you experiencing? Good, bad, ugly?
So I'm not I'm not a dating site kind of person. I'm more organic. And there's nothing wrong with those. I just don't.
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. It's just not for me. I like, that doesn't mean that I would never do it either if it came to that. Not that sounded negative. I don't mean that in a bad way. How dare you?
We're
Right?
one lonely night away from a
Yeah.
Tinder profile.
Right. However, I've always done pretty well for myself, so I just rather run into people however you run into them, and you know, I don't know, but I hear that it is really really tough out there, but I really just focus more on my development and me being a better version of me, and as I evolve, I figure the people that are supposed to be in my life will show up, and if they can't show up for me in the way I need them to.
It is what it is.
Throw them in the gutter and go find another. I've always said that, But yeah, I mean, definitely, I date. I, try to make the people in my life, person in my life, feel special. But those things come in time, for sure.
If you don't mind,
Please.
I am going to switch topics.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
And by the way, thanks for going down that path with me.
Absolutely.
It's one of the things that I wouldn't say passionate about.
Yeah.
I would say a little passionate about. I like coaching, and I like feeling like I want to be the mentor for the next generation of men the way I had certain mentors. So I do feel like it is an important thing, and I try to observe it and try to react to it accordingly. So thank you. One of the things I want to discuss with you is something that I kind of hold dear to myself because I have a daughter, yes, but I want more kids. And
Sure.
Ideally, I'll have boys and girls. If I don't, it's God's plan, and it is what it is, right? But one of the things I wanted to ask you is obviously you have your son Hickson, and he is now coming into his own as a young adult.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about you as a father, especially like when he was maybe younger, what that was like to not just raise a son, but obviously he is kind of walking a very similar path to you.
Yeah.
Some of your attributes, some of your interests. And I'm curious what that feels like. What are some of the emotions that you go through, and how do you navigate that as a father? When do you know, because we were talking off the record, that you were his coach and his father. How did you navigate when to be the coach? How did you navigate, okay, now it's time to wear the dad hat? How was that when he was growing up?
I feel like I have this conversation every day at class because he's very strong-minded and very strong-bodied, very strong-willed. And what I never wanted for my children was that they had to be me in any fashion. Go be an individual, and I'll support you in whatever you do. But I knew that what I wanted my kids to do was to wrestle. And I'm talking about before I ever had kids, because the things it would teach you about yourself and about life.
Agreed.
So if they did one sport, I wanted them to wrestle, but I never pushed him into wrestling.
If you had a daughter, would you?
Same.
Yeah.
Period. I said kids.
Yes.
I said kids, right? I love watching girls wrestle. Yeah, I love that. And when he would compete, I think he started jiu-jitsu at 7 or 8 years old. And I immediately like, this kid's going to be really good. And then I was like, this kid's going to be really shitty.
Really?
Yeah. But that was probably important for me because that really removed the expectations.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense. I was like, I just want him to be who he's going to be. And then one day he went to a tournament without the bonus kids, my bonus kids, who are amazing. I love them. And it was just him. I think they were seeing their father.
Do you mind if I ask what you mean by bonus kids? Forgive me.
People use the word stepkids.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
I hate that phrase because they'll forever be mine.
Gotcha.
Just because I'm not with her, they'll be mine. So they're,
God bless.
So
okay, forgive me. I just didn't
No,
understand.
of course, you should ask. So I'd say my kids, but then when I'm having conversations with people that don't know, it's so externally like, what I thought you said Hickson. Well, yeah, I do. He's my only blood child, but I've got these bonus kids that are a blessing to me. Maybe I should call them my blessing children or blessed kids. I don't know what sounds good.
Kids,
right? Kids. But sometimes you have to be very specific.
I call them my kids.
Yeah.
Like it sounds weird, but it's like you know what I mean. Like
yeah,
I want for them.
Yeah, to know that they're loved. Right?
Yeah.
But when you're having these conversations with people that don't know, you go like, I just see Hickson. So it's
That's very fair. That's very fair. The context.
Yeah, context matters sometimes. So when
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I'm glad you asked because I want them to know who they are to me always, right? Always, they're mine. And their father's amazing. And he's the first person to call me any Father's Day and thank me and tell me,
God bless.
Yeah, we have a great relationship. Co-parenting at its best, right? So at one tournament, they didn't come. Peyton and Amari, the two other, right? They didn't come, and it was just Hickson. And that's the day that he figured it out. And that day I was like, yeah, he's what I thought he was. Like, he's good. He's really good. But I also DQ'd him myself in a match because he argued with the referee. Because remember I said he's strong-headed. Kid tapped, and the referee didn't see it, and the kid's like, I didn't tap. The kid lied about it. And I was like, Hickson, it's no big deal. Just tap
him again.
Tap
Yeah.
him again. Like, you're going to tap that kid again.
That's such a savage response, though, Tracy. That's such a savage
Just
response.
tap him again. But I know who the kid is, and I know that he's that savage. But he's very much, this is what's fair, and this is what's not fair. That's him. So I understood why he said what he said. But simplicity is just tap again. Like, you absolutely do it again. And this is a kid I would take moves away from. Like, you can't use this move or this move because you're going to tap people too quickly. Because he was that good even growing up. He was tapping grown men at probably 10 years old at St. Charles MMA. You know, like, you can't use a Kimura, you can't use an Americana, you can't use his moves. And I'm like, just tap to the kid. And argued with the referee. I'm like, look, you have to stop talking to the ref. I need you to understand and be disciplined. Like,
Can you tell that to him?
yeah, who you are.
I got that rule too.
3 years I tried to teach him that.
Who you are as a person, to me, matters more than you being a great competitor. I want to raise a great citizen, a great person. That's so much more important to me. So I DQ'd him myself, and the ref was like, are you sure? I'm like, absolutely. I told him to stop talking to you. He didn't understand and respect your authority. It's done. Just tap the kid again or get off the mat. So even though I knew at that moment how great he was going to be, he came home with a silver medal and a lesson. And hopefully that lesson prevailed, you know.
Well, that lesson was more important than the gold medal.
So much more important than the gold medal. I don't care. And even as he grew up and he'd come off the mat in a match, maybe he lost, he'd look at me like, you're going to be really disappointed. I'd be like, that was the best match ever. I don't care that you win or lose. I care about your effort. If you give a perfect effort, that doesn't mean everything goes perfectly. But you gave the best effort you could possibly give. Those things are so much more important to me. That's what matters to me in life, is you did the best you possibly could, because somebody's always going to be better. But even in some of the matches that he did win, like, man, that was really piss poor. Like, what were you doing? And I was kind of laugh about it. But what I also learned I had to do first to remove the emotion from me from the match was ask him if he was okay. Are you healthy? Everything's okay? How are you physically? How are you mentally? And when I approached things in that way, it made me almost be more subservient to him in a situation, who he was. And that was more important to me as a father. I don't want to roll with him when we're in the room together. I stay on the other side of the room. I don't roll with him because he's your kid. Eventually, they're going to do something that's going to piss you off, throughout the day. And I don't want that to bleed onto the mat. So I'll coach him, but I don't want to roll with him because it might get personal. And we're all emotional, and he's going to do something. He's going to react in some kind of way. And I could be a little bit of a savage on the mat, and I might beat him up a little bit, and he's just going to get emotional about it, and I'm going to be like, what are you crying about? And then even more of that thing, and even more of that thing, and even more of that thing, because that's just going to be my visceral reaction, and I don't want to be that way.
Do you roll with him today?
I'm speaking about today. I do not roll with him.
Still.
And even when I would coach, like I coached at the Smet, when he was there, I'd be on the other side of the mat. Like, I don't want to, you're over there, I'm over here. This is your team, Hickson. This is his team. I'm just a coach. This is your team. You're the athlete. So I existed on the other side of the mat.
Why did you approach it that way? Out of curiosity, why not?
Because my relationship was so much more important than anything else.
Gotcha. That's
what mattered to me. My relationship with my son is 10 times. It's paramount. It means more than anything else. I don't. I need him to feel supported. I don't need him to live up to anything I've ever done. I don't need him to be an extension of me. Although I know that exists in the background, although I know that he wants to carry the family name, although I know he wants to, tailor-made jiu-jitsu is an important thing for him to defend. Who he is to me is so much more important than all that.
God bless.
Yeah. And I think that's the only way really to parent. And honestly, my perspective was growing up, I had a kid I played football with in high school who was a phenomenal athlete, great basketball player as well, and his dad just was not positive and would scream at him. Like, we go to the basketball games, you could hear him just screaming at him.
Oh, no.
And you'd watch that kid just wilt. And he was a great competitor, a great athlete. And I was like, I never want to be that parent. So I will never be that parent. And that's not to say that I don't let him have it when he needs to have that. I will.
You DQ'd your own son.
Yeah,
you gave it to him when he needed it.
I'll always parent him. I DQ'd him because there's a bigger lesson to be learned. but it won't ever be like out of the other way.
Yeah.
I've even had him wave me off during a match, wrestling match, and I'm coaching him. He's like, all right, you don't know everything, kid. Like, and then he learns those lessons. So I was like, yeah, you're right. I should have listened. But other people will tell him the benefit of having me around. Like, maybe this guy does know a little something more than I ever have to tell him or remind him, because ultimately, who am I? I've done some things in life, but the other people will speak for me,
Yeah.
and which is great. It's good to have students that will be uncles and big brothers to them, that take them out to lunch, take them to dinner, that try to help them be a better human. That say, maybe your dad it might know something. Even when he was wearing a kid's belt, he thought he knew more than I did. Just stop arguing, go do 50 up downs. That's the way I would handle it. Just go do up downs.
Now, you still coach at Desmet, if I'm not mistaken, even though your son has graduated, correct?
Correct.
Can we briefly just go over that of how did that feel to coach when he was carrying that banner with the same school, and how does it feel to coach that team now without him present?
Because it was never, I would get asked, and I should say I was an unofficial coach then, but the other assistant coaches just would never show up that year. And being around the program and them all, everybody knowing that I was a wrestler, you'd step into practice and help out, just because that's what community does, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, you saw a need and you
saw a
filled
need
it.
and you helped, right? But I never tried to overstep the line. And they needed me in the wrestling match, show up in the wrestling room, and then I would still try to take a step back and just be a parent. So I'd find myself in the bleachers at a tournament, and then the head coach is coaching, and then everybody, wrestlers' parents, would look back and be like, "So what are you gonna do?"
Are you going to help my kid?
Well, apparently, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna coach and go sit in the seat, so finally, I just made it official after he graduated, just to try to fill a need. You're a wrestler. What do? You find a mat, right? That's what you kind of do. So it's not a strange thing for me. It's just, I'm a wrestler. There's a mat. There's kids. There's wrestling. So you go wrestle. So I really kept it simple. I just noticed something. I got to speak about it. Aren't these the best hot sauces ever?
Oh, yeah, Gabe Stein?
Yeah. They're literally the best ones I've ever had.
When he was here, he had me put it
They're good,
on
right?
the pineapple one.
yeah.
We put that on chocolate. I remember
Of all
that.
these- and
yeah,
it works, right?
When he told me about that, I was like, I gave him one of these like,
She's like, I don't know if I want to do that.
It was actually delicious.
Yeah. So
So these are the ones we keep here, but he was generous enough to give me some that we have at the house. And then my wife was eating pizza one day and she was like, yo, where'd you get this? So Gabe, shout out to you, brother. You crushed it.
I love hot honey.
That's his new product, right?
Yeah, it is. So I'm a big Mike's hot honey guy, and I love putting it on pizza. But his is 10 times better than any one I've ever had. And then I also like using like chili, like hot chili oil. You ever use hot chili oil in pizza?
No.
Yeah, man, that's the next level too.
I just got to the point where I use hot sauce now.
Yeah, these, like, whatever it tells you it is what it tastes like, and I think that's a rarity. So Gabe and I were at a wedding, and he's like, "Hey, I want you," because I've always done all my own logos and all my stuff, right? And he's like, "I want you to look at this." And I was like, "Gabe, your logos are shit." Like, I'm always gonna be brutally honest. I'll be the scalpel.
Were you the one that helped him with these?
Yeah, so I didn't design it, but I helped him up his game, right?
Nice.
I'm like, no, as great as your product may be, nobody's ever going to taste it because
No,
your artwork
legit.
is crap. So he redid his artwork and sent it to me. I'm like, dude, this is amazing. This is amazing artwork. And literally, the artwork matches it's probably worse than what's inside still, even it's amazing artwork.
Bro, that shit is so much hotter than the stars will tell you.
They're good. They're amazing. And I think, like, there's so many different levels. It's great. I don't know. Sorry, I'm gonna brag on Gabe.
No.
It's amazing. He did an amazing job. And I'm happy to see him succeed.
When he was on the podcast, he kind of shocked me. I always have an idea of what a guest is going to be like, and when you sit and talk with someone for 2 to 3 hours, I don't want to say like you're going to learn everything about him, but you get a good feel for an individual, right? I was actually very surprised at Gabe, considering his upbringing, the immense toll that his youth put on him, for him to turn out the way he did.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were talking earlier about zigging and zagging and parents making decisions that can go left or right. It works the same way with kids.
Yeah,
and Gabe could have
100%.
easily been a completely different individual, living a completely different
Could have
life.
been a dirtbag.
But he chose better for himself.
You know what he's going to be? He's going to be a millionaire.
You think?
I wholeheartedly believe that's going to, in my heart, believe that is that
I
good.
genuinely hope you're right.
And so do I.
So good.
They're good. They speak for themselves, and I think he is going to be the next big thing. And I think when people try it, I think it's going to absolutely blow up. I believe in that product that much.
God bless.
I really do. I think it's that good, and I think I like to consider myself a foodie. I like good food, especially being a wrestler.
Oh yeah.
Like I'm a slow eater
I'm
because
bad
I
with you.
appreciate food now. I don't just go through. I appreciate food and I enjoy the product. Look at him. He understands exactly. He's getting all excited. He knows.
The three things
Yeah.
that create the most serotonin in the brain are drugs, sex, and food.
Right.
I
That's
have
why
my
business
wife.
deals-
I don't do drugs.
Right.
We both like food.
and that's why business deals were typically done over dinner. Right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
the serotonin levels were increased, so you take people out to meals.
It's a lot easier to give someone bad news or give them a
Yeah.
shitty shake when they're a little inebriated too.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Never do business over lunch.
Yeah.
Always over a dinner.
Always over
and get a
dinner.
good glass of wine or a good bottle of wine and the
And
night.
good bourbon.
Yeah, or a good bourbon. Yeah.
Right.
It takes care of itself.
Yeah. It's going to be huge. Anyway, I'm sorry. So,
No.
Yeah.
I like that you brought that up because one of the things I genuinely enjoy it's like a universal trait that I admire is entrepreneurship.
yeah.
And one of the things that I kind of learned when doing this podcast is Sweeps and Teeps, Stand Up Fight Series, Stein Bros, Hot Sauce, Hand Wraps,
Yeah.
Dan O'Connor's wife's band.
Yeah. Yeah. I love seeing
Everybody
that diversity,
has
right.
that thing that well, no, I don't want to say everybody has a thing. A good number of my guests have had the dream or the passion or you call it side hustle or whatever that they're really trying to push for, and you just can't help but admire and respect someone who is, they have the day job as well and they're trying to handle children and they're trying to do all these other things, and instead of choosing a life of perhaps they could be spending more leisure time or watching Netflix or whatever,
They're out hustling.
they're out grinding, making hot sauces,
Yeah.
or they're booking fights for all these Muay Thai guys, or they're creating a product for fighters, or Taco Vibe. Sorry, Taco King,
Yeah. So when Hickson, so Adam Meredith, right, one of my best friends. I love.
he's another example
Yeah,
of that with
exactly.
imposed will.
So I love to. First of all, I love to see I love to support people. Absolutely love it. Love to see everybody do great. And Adam is one of my best friends in the world. Amazing guy, and I will forever support his brand because he's my people, and it's great. It's a great product. Period. If it was a crap product, you heard what I said.
You would have told him.
I would have told him.
And
but
then he
it's
would
a
have
great-
upped his game.
It's a great product, so I will forever support it, and it'll be the product of TaylorMade BJJ forever. Right? Love that. I love seeing Dan O'Connor's wife Crystal exceed expectations and her to be in the space that she's in, and I love watching her grow. And I think Dan is amazing, and I think Dan's
He's grown a lot as an individual.
He 100% has grown an individual.
He's changed a lot in the time that I've known him.
And I think Dan and I have a love-hate relationship in that he doesn't completely understand me because I'm always going to tell people what's on my mind. I'm always going to do that.
Which is funny because so is Dan.
Yeah, 100%.
You guys share that in common.
We do, but sometimes I tell Dan what's on my mind, and sometimes I love Dan. Sometimes I think Dan takes it personally, in that he thinks I don't care for him. But because I love him, I tell him.
Yeah.
And Dan, I love you, and I love that Crystal's doing all these things, and I want to tell Dan that I do love him. I really do. But sometimes I think we butt heads because I do care for him so much, and I think the growth is amazing, and I think he's capable of so much more. But who am I to say that anybody's capable of doing anything? You know what I mean?
Can I ask a question on that topic? When you say that you guys are butting heads, and this is a broad question, but do you do so more predominantly in person, or
No,
do you
never.
find
Social
the
media.
catalyst? All right, that's the
Social
worst.
media.
That's the
Yeah,
worst way to do
100%.
it. Can we agree on that?
And I said it. You know what I mean? Like I took ownership of it because I know how it comes off. But the only reason that we ever do that is because I care so much for him.
I think
And
it's just
but I'm proud of the person that he's become.
I think it's just a terrible medium to have
Agreed.
that conversation.
Agreed.
To That make sense?
And people
Like it's better to
misunderstand
pick
the-
up the phone.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you get the nonverbal cues, or I guess
Sure.
that would be more of a FaceTime. But you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I find that there's so much discourse about politics online, and I know the character of the individuals that are
Dude,
arguing.
if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong.
Well,
and
not just that,
And I
but-
don't want anybody to ever misunderstand my intent with them. And for that reason, I'll be like, hey, look, there's Crystal.
Yeah.
She's freaking amazing. And Dan, you're amazing, and I love who Dan is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want him to ever misunderstand where I'm coming from as a person, because he's a good friend. He's a good guy.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I am not a fan of having or trying to have an incredibly intricate or difficult conversation through messaging on a Facebook page. Like you're better off meeting each other in person, being on a podcast, or getting dinner,
or even getting on and go to Messenger.
Yes,
and clear it up
and do it personally. Hey, this is
for
what I
sure.
meant by what I said
agree.
about this.
I agree.
I just find that there's so many people that are arguing because they enjoy that argument, and that's one aspect of it. But then the problem is, it so often becomes
ego driven.
it devolves sometimes into like an insult match, and then I'm like, okay, you guys have lost the point of this argument or this conversation.
Yeah. And I refuse to do that, but I think sometimes people take my. I tell Hickson, I'll put it this way. I tell Hickson all the time, like, because he's a great, sensitive kid, and as Hickson, sometimes you mistake direct conversations for people not being mad at you or not liking you, and that's not the case. So don't take my direct conversation with you as me being mad at you.
Yeah.
I'm your father, and I should have direct. I'm a man, a person, I'm a human. I should have direct conversations with people, so there are no misunderstandings. And you know where I'm coming from. But that doesn't mean that I don't value you as a person and who you are. In this situation, though, this just is what it is. But like we said, you can punch a guy, go get a beer, and everything's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, some guys, Dan O'Connor, you can punch Dan O'Connor, and he'll get a beer with you.
Yeah.
Some other guys, not necessarily the case.
Right. I might come back with a pipe and fight you. I wouldn't come with a pipe, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Punch me. I'll take it.
I'll say this, even though I don't necessarily agree with no, it's not the majority. I don't agree with a lot of people in the martial arts community on a myriad of topics. Mm-hmm. I've never once thought they were bad people or that they were, you know what I mean, They may be incorrect as I perceive it, but I don't believe that they're coming at that from a place of malice or ill intent was a good way to describe it as well.
What's the paradigm? What's the point of view? Why do they feel that way? I think it's the important
perspective, lived experience. It's the conclusion that they arrive to, and I need to.
And
I can accept and respect it while simultaneously not agreeing with it.
And we have to always put ourselves in their shoes. I think to understand why they. Doesn't mean I agree with you, but I need to understand why you feel that way. I still may never agree with it.
That's tough, though. Surely you can acknowledge that to understand someone's perspective means you need to be educated enough on that perspective.
I always will try to understand someone else's perspective.
I want to know how you arrived to the wrong conclusion, but I still stand by my comment that is the wrong conclusion.
Yeah.
I don't fault you for it.
It's the wrong conclusion for me.
There are, correct, yes. There are things that I am very passionate about that I will stake my claim, that line in the sand, so to speak. Yeah. But I don't, and I think this is something that I see the hypocrisy in a lot of things, and I hate when people say, like, don't talk about religion, politics, or your salary. Because I'm like, well, then what else am I going to talk about? I love God, and I want to talk about God, and I want to talk about my relationship with God. I think that politics is very important, and how can we progress as a society if we don't discuss ideas, good, bad, or ugly? Sure. And how am I going to expect for my salary to increase if I don't understand the marketplace around me?
Yeah. So it's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah. Dude, are you kidding me? It's a great resource.
It's the best thing ever. Yeah.
I guess I bring that up because I just, I think there's a time and a place for conversations. Yeah. I just don't think Facebook is the right medium for that.
I agree with that.
Get a podcast. Everybody make a podcast.
Yeah. So it's. I think it helps all of us grow, and sometimes you learn, if nothing else, just to shut your mouth.
Yes.
Which,
I will refuse to argue on Facebook, and that's angered more people. I've had so many people be like, Arion, what about this, that, or the other? And I'll just comment, I don't have the time. Yeah. I genuinely don't have the time nor the effort. Like, I don't have the will,
have the energy
to try to explain to you. I'll give you this because I think it's funny. We were talking about voter registration, and I sat on the phone because, like I told you, I don't argue on Facebook. Yeah. But Steve Berger was like in opposition to my position. I'm not even going to talk about like the politics of it because that's not what's important. So I called Steve. I go, hey, I'm working. I don't have the time to message you, but I'll put you on speaker and I will discuss while I'm working my position. I was on the phone with Steve for 2 hours.
I believe that.
And in 2 hours, all we came to the conclusion of is he's not wrong under certain circumstances.
So,
and now if I take that and extrapolate it to everybody that disagrees with me, I literally don't have the time. So there's not enough hours in the day in my life.
Let me let's talk about Steve for a minute.
Yes.
And I agree with you. I think that's a beautiful sentiment. I'm talking about evolution. Steve's evolved so much. I've known Steve for years. Whether I agree with Steve or I don't agree with Steve is neither here nor there, and I'm not saying either way. But I love seeing Steve have an evolved opinion, whether it's right or wrong. I love seeing it because that's just not always the Steve that I knew growing
Really?
up. Oh no, not at all. And man, I have so much respect, so much more respect for him. Not that I didn't. I love Steve. I always got along with Steve, but I love seeing how he's grown as a man and as a human, and it's amazing to me. I love that. I appreciate that about him. It's just not the Steve that I knew before.
Really?
Yeah. It's just, so again, regardless of right or wrong, the way he presents it is very eloquent. You know, Steve's not. I think that's what's great about humans is he's not just a fighter. You know what I mean? And so where he was in his life at that time, where we all were, and he's. It sounds like you're talking down to people. Like he's grown up. I don't mean that in a bad way. I love
No, you're
seeing.
giving him roses.
I am trying to give him these roses while he's alive. That's what we should do. And I love seeing the evolution of my friend. You know what I mean? Like I love seeing that. But I feel that way about a lot of people as I've gotten older, and just love seeing them grow. But you know, that's what happens when you find the love of your life and you have kids, and you know what I mean? Like you evolve, and we should evolve, you know? Like you talked about your relationship with your wife. Like that's what it should be, right? Like it should be all
I
those
hope.
things. It should be. Absolutely.
That's
It
the
should
point,
be.
right?
Yeah.
I always had the caveat of like, I've only been married for 2 years.
Yeah.
You might come to me in 10 years and maybe I have a completely different outlook, or maybe I don't rest on the way things are or the way things are going to be. I am
Yeah.
a firm believer of it took effort and work to get here, and it's
Yeah.
going to take more effort and work to
keep it
stay
there.
here.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with that.
Or
And
to grow
and
it.
because of that, you'll have a successful marriage.
I hope. Once again, like
It takes two people and communication, as we said.
I don't know if it's because I was poor when I was growing up, but I have this anxiety within me, or like this, I don't want to call it fear, but it's an ever present notion that is like, you know, it took me a long time to get to where I'm at today. And there are places that I want to achieve after this, but I never forget that I am 2 to 3 bad mistakes
Yeah.
from losing it all. I'm not one, and my goal is to create enough barriers to zero that it never happens.
I agree with that.
There has to be so many things that happen in succession for me to go back to where I was. And that's basically like, not just like monetarily, but within my relationship. Like there's a lot of things that have to go wrong for that to fail. And then with my current quality of life, there are 2 or 3 things that I would have to simultaneously eat shit on to go back to where I was. And
it's all possible.
I'm always cognizant of it. I'm aware that, you know, Conor McGregor had a famous quote: "They love you today, they hate you tomorrow, get paid both days." That's how I live my life.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment because I've found myself in those places, and where I've had and then I've absolutely had not. And I so as a kid, I always we'd go out to dinner, and I remember thinking, I mean, I'm talking about like below the age of probably 8, where I'm thinking, this is the day my dad looks at me and says, "So where's your money?" And I'm like, "Dad, I'm 8. You know, where are you going to possibly have money? Where are you going to get it from?" But so I've always lived my life in waiting for the next shoe to drop in that respect. So, and you probably voiced it better, like just 2 to 3 mistakes away. And I've been where it wasn't a mistake, but life circumstances, you know, put me there, and you find yourself, you know, just trying to figure it out again. But, you know, always be prepared, plan for the best, you know, plan for the worst, hope for the best, right?
Yeah.
Just always be prepared. Always have another bullet in the chamber. And that's sort of how I try to live my life. And I think it's possible to reinvent yourself yet again.
100%.
And yet again. And yet again. And that's something I'll always try to do, is just continue to evolve who I am. And it probably stems from that fear of when my dad's going to say, "So where's your money?" You know, and I know that was unrealistic at the age of 8, but that was always just stuck in my head. Like, one day he's going to do that, because why is this person taking care of me? When he's the one out hustling, figuring it out. Like, when does that end? When does that stop? When, you know, when is he going to be like, "Well, it's your turn to step up"? You know? So, and I know that's probably strange for a young kid, but my head, I was just wired that way.
I would say that I arrived to the same conclusion through a different path, but it was more of like, I have heard from many people that are much more wealthy and successful than I am. They talk about how they have risen and fallen with the mistakes and the correct choices in their life. And I think to myself, if this guy or girl went from, 0 to a million to 0 to 2 million. That is a wide delta.
Yeah.
And if it can happen to them, who are smarter, wiser than I am, then it
happen.
can damn well
Happen to
happen
all of
to
us.
me.
Yeah.
I am not without my failures as a man, as an individual. I have my faults. I'm not perfect. Only God is.
Yeah.
And I just need to plan accordingly and make sure that that is ever present. And whether you call that like, trauma or some shit like that, I words matter, but
That's wisdom.
yeah, I hope.
It's wisdom.
I hope.
We've all. I shouldn't say we've all. I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else. We can all be humbled, and I've been humbled, and I think it's important to know that and remember that. As soon as you think you've got all the chips in your corner, it's just as easily as those, like you said, you're 2 or 3 moves away from losing it all, and then you do, and you can. So it's important to enjoy, each one of those. Enjoy your situation. Enjoy the people that are around you. Enjoy what you have because it goes away quick. They can.
I'll also add one last variable to that, and that is you can still, like, it is not a reflection of you as an individual because you can still do everything right, and life can deal you a shitty hand. You could be intelligent and have a great, marriage and all this other stuff, and then I leave here today, knock on wood, and I get hit by a semi.
Yeah.
And I did everything right.
Sure.
I did all the things that I was supposed to do. I honored my wife. I gave to my community. I, built up as much wealth as I could, and it could still be taken away from me. And that's also something that I think to myself, like, my mentality at this point in my life is do as many things to prevent myself from zero and put myself in a position to where if it is gone tomorrow, if I am gone tomorrow, are those around me set up for success or failure?
Sure.
Not necessarily just money, but
Period.
yeah.
Just intellectually. So.
Does my wife understand the legacy that I was trying to hold? My child's a little young now, so hopefully nothing happens to me. But like by the time she's 10, 11, my mom got cancer when I was 9 years old. Healthy woman, never drank, never did anything, and worked her ass off and everything, and then boom, got dealt a shitty hand. Luckily for me, she was able to live 10 years fighting cancer on and off before she finally passed away. In that 10 years, the value that I got from my mother is eternal. I will hold on to that legacy for the remainder of my days. So now, and she got cancer when she was 31 years old. I'm 32 years old. Now all I think to myself is, well, mom got cancer when she was 31. So like, what if I only had 8 more years and not 60 more years? I don't know when I'm going to leave. So now I know that sounds kind of fucked up. Like I know it sounds a little, like that's very morbid.
I think it's human.
We were talking about toxic
But every day's
masculinity.
a plus at this point because you've exceeded what she had.
Well, not even that. We were talking about earlier about toxic masculinity. Well, here's a thing I think that is a good masculine trait. It is my job to provide and to culture and to nurture my family and protect them for as long as I live. That is my job as a man. And tomorrow my life can be taken, or tomorrow certain series of circumstances could come and prevent me from doing that to the best of my abilities. But I can't plan as if that's not going to happen. I plan for as if that may happen because I've seen it happen to others. And I am no different from anybody else on this planet. Like I said, I could be dealt a shitty hand tomorrow. I'm not special or important. I am just like everybody else.
I think it's also okay to expect your partner to help in that situation too. I think it's our job as a man to show up first and foremost, but it's also okay for you to expect your partner to show up in those ways as well. But to your point, maybe it's not. We're only a couple, a knee slice away and then a mouth away from being in the shittiest situation ever. And, maybe it's your wife decides she doesn't love you anymore. Maybe you get downsized at work. Maybe all those things happen simultaneously. And you're like, whoa, like everything is upside down.
When it rains, it pours.
And you've got to figure it out. But again, back to reinventing yourself and who you are.
I think it's hard, man. Like, I think it's one of those things where it is absolutely doable. And I think that we should all strive to have that strength. But we should also acknowledge that I've seen many men not. Or many women not. Because, by the way, this is not isolated to just men. Like, these things can easily happen. Yeah.
You mean general terms. I know.
Yeah, I mean, a woman could have a husband who, things happen to. So, like, by no means am I isolating the genders.
So, to that point, what baseline did you set? What foundation did you set, right?
Yeah.
From the beginning. So, if you are on your knees because your father won't let you rest on the fact that you want to be an athlete and says that could be taken away from you anytime, but you're on the side of your parents' bed doing your homework, and that's the foundation that was set, then the expectation within you is that you have to reinvent yourself because, well, that you're capable of, because at any moment you might have to.
Yeah.
And if that's what you're trying to instill in yourself and in your children and your legacy, then it just is what it is. So we got to want more for ourselves, right?
I think that is the human condition.
Yeah.
I think
Be
that's how it
impervious.
should be.
Be impervious to those things.
Yes.
You can't be Teflon. You can't be bulletproof.
No.
But you can maybe be Teflon to where things just kind of, there's a little damage, but it slides off you.
What's that age-old quote? Like, I had a plan,
Everybody's got
and
a plan
God
to the game.
laughed. No,
Oh, yeah, tell God you have a plan.
Yeah, tell God you have a plan,
Oh,
and
man,
he'll
that's the
laugh at
best.
you. And it's
Tell God
like,
you have a plan and watch him laugh.
that's one of my favorite quotes, because it's like,
100%.
I do have a plan. I try to have things as concise and strong as possible, but I fully acknowledge that I am powerless in certain aspects.
I think that's an important one to me. I also have a couple other ones. Fate loves the fearless. I tell myself that before I walk on the mat. So just go be fearless, right? Anything can happen in one day, right? And there's a family mantra. I'm not new to it. I'm true to it. Which is sort of the 10 toes down. I'm not new to this. I'm true to it. Like, and I tell my fighters that before they step in the cage or they walk on a mat. Like, hey, you're not new to it. You're true to it. Like, this is just who we are. This is just another day in us being who we are. Right? We're true to this. We're true to this game.
Another day in the office.
Another day in the office. Yeah. That one always resonates with me.
Tracy, we're 2 hours into this conversation. I wanted to thank you immensely for the time that you gave to me. It's never lost on me whenever people give me this time, because it is our most important, it's our most prized resource is time. So for you to come in here, give me 2 to 3 hours of your time to just have what I would describe as an eloquent, intricate conversation that I deeply enjoyed. I got to learn a little bit about you after the fights. I got to learn more about you today. I hope that you genuinely enjoyed your time here. I know that I did.
For sure.
Before we put a nightcap on this, was there anything that you wanted to discuss or touch over before we call it a show?
So one, I'll say you're right. I think time is the only commodity in life we can't get back. So I think that's important. And how we choose to spend our time is important. So I appreciate you having me.
It's an honor.
Yeah. I'm an open book, so whatever. I mean, I was here for that. So I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, this was a joy. I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Brother, thank you.
Right. And thank you. Absolutely.